Good evening. It is January 18, 2022, and this is a meeting of the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission. As a preliminary matter, this is John Ostrowski, Chair. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Martha Gatch.
Here.
Jason Port.
Here.
Ken Polito.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Brad Stone.
Here.
This open meeting of the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely consistent with Senate Bill 2475, signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16, 2021, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18. This meeting of the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission is convening by Google Meet as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please be sure to press *6 to mute your phone. The meeting will feature public comment. Please wait until I open the item for public comment and press *6 to unmute your phone. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, diving into our agenda. Our first item, review and approve minutes. The commission is still in the process of reviewing the minutes. Item 2, sign bills. Brad, are there any bills for us to swing by and sign this week? No? Okay. Our third item, meetings and hearings. Our first item was a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Capital Group Properties for the construction of a single-family house and associated site work at 824 Main Street, Lot 1A. The applicants requested us to continue this hearing until our next meeting, which will be February 15th, 2022. Moving on to our next item. We have another continued public hearing, and it's regarding the notice of intent filed by Courtney and Derek Quartler for site grading at 12 Kimball Drive. Do we have somebody representing that application?
Mr. Chairman, we got a continuance request earlier this evening for that.
Okay. So the applicants requested a continuance, and that hearing will be also continued to our next meeting, which is February 15, 2022. We have another continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Cypress Avenue Development Partners to construct a paved roadway, stormwater management system, grading and utilities at 0 Greenbrier Drive and 257 Gulf Street. Do we have the applicants here tonight for that hearing?
Yes, you do.
Okay, can you introduce yourself and give us a bit of a presentation?
Certainly. My name is Barry Atchison. I'm not sure it may come up on your screen as you. I'm sorry. With WDA Design Group, and I'm here to introduce to you guys the definitive plan request to create frontage for future development of the villas at Cypress Woods. It's a development that's coming off of Cypress Road at the end of Greenbrier Drive. And the intention is to, under this filing, to create around 450 feet of frontage for the development. If I can throw up a couple of drawings here, present. How do I do that? Is there a present button on here, Brad?
You on a computer, Barry?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the bottom you should see a bunch of icons in the meet.
Yep.
Okay, one of those has an arrow pointing up with a frame around it.
Yep.
Yeah, click on that.
And window. And we'll go to that. Share. Yeah, over there. I believe there's a drawing shown on your screen. It was the initial development plans that we have since continued. And what I'd like to point out on this particular drawing is down the bottom is Cypress Road. And then coming off of that, the existing public way stub for Greenbrier Drive. And our proposal is to continue that in, becoming private road, put a cul-de-sac in. And what this drawing is showing previously was a large detention basin. And you'll also notice in the road, there are some catch basins and drainage structures in the middle of the road. Our revised drawings that I'll show you in a second have removed those from the design. And here's our latest design that we're asking you folks to approve. The project, again, as I said, is road coming up the private way to a cul-de-sac. And the reason we took that large detention basin is to, hang on a second. Yeah. Sorry, whiny dog. Is that the existing groundwater, once we did the initial look at it, which was a few years old, we've since gone back, did a couple of test pits up on the top right-hand side. I think I can zoom in. Boop, boop. Up in the top corner, you'll see a test pit. And we also had a test pit done in the middle of what's going to be a rain garden. The whole cul-de-sac itself is 100-foot diameter, meeting the town's requirements with grass edging and curbing and grass and so forth. But in order to recover and retain the accumulated stormwater runoff, we have to put in a rain garden. The intention is that all to be taken in by the rain garden. There's a 90-foot diameter stone basin. I'll show you a detail in a few minutes of what our intention on that is. But I wanted to initially point out our changes, which is the removal of the detention basin, removal of the drainage system, adding the center island with a rain garden, adding some infiltration. What this is allowing us to do is reduce the work within the resource area, reducing our area from the bordered vegetated wetland, and a majority of the detention pond outside of the 100-year buffer zone. We've also, to incorporate additional infiltration and so forth, we're modifying some of the grass on the outside of the cul-de-sac and placing that with a vegetative mat. The mat will help runoff and infiltrate, as well as set the area as a little bit more to its natural territory that you'll see in the wetlands behind it. Yep, next page down. The profile of the road. Get over there. Can you guys see that all right? The profile of the road is pretty flat coming in off the road. There'll be a little rise, 2% rise coming in, and then it'll fall off on the curve to the end, with the low point being the middle of the cul-de-sac. The plan is to put some around the outside edges of the cul-de-sac, some trees and shrubbery, as well as the vegetative mat to help screen the area in the future. And there we go. And what will the rain garden look like? Let's just show you on the outside. You've got a 48-foot diameter inside curb area. On the outside is a 100-foot diameter roadway. It'll come to the middle with a 3-foot and 2-foot grass and stone filter strip that'll help with the runoff and infiltration, and followed with a permeable soil rain garden area. And below that, you have crushed stone for infiltration. And then we have met the recent testing for the observed groundwater and seasonal high, which were separated by a couple of feet, which is meeting your regulations. I also have Greg Scotchy on online. If you want to pull him in, and he'll talk to you about the stormwater.
Okay, Barry, I'll just let you continue being the presenter, but
Yep.
if you could go back to sheet 3 and kind of just zoom out so we can see the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
The existing conditions, the lot as it sits right now is a wooded lot, and we are proposing obviously to put in the pavement, sidewalks, and that is our the major change in terms of going from a pervious area to adding impervious hardscape. And we were able to change our design based upon the field data that was obtained with the test pits. We were able to kind of fine tune the design a bit with that information and bring the earlier proposed pond, which Barry mentioned, he says it's a large pond, but really in terms of area, it took up space, but it was, relatively a shallow pond. So in terms of volume, not great in volume. So that volume we were able to tuck underneath the cul-de-sac space and provide the required recharge that our impervious areas are that our impervious areas that our impervious areas cause. Travel in terms of hydrology, the travel times in the existing condition with a wooded area are relatively long. So when we put in the pavement, we have a high time of concentration, which throws up the flow and volume numbers, which we are capturing in this rain garden and slowly exfiltrating back into the soil, meeting our existing flow and volume requirements. I think that we sheet flow. Barry showed the centerline profile sheet. Flow generally falls from a high point near Cypress Road there at the beginning, starting at station
Station 0.
Yeah. So the stationing starts at 0 at the right of way, and about 30 feet into the site, we hit a high point. So at that high point, which pretty much follows the existing condition, flow goes back to Cypress. We were able to not increase any flow or volume back into the right-of-way by doing that, by setting our high point where it's located. Beyond the high point, everything flows back towards the cul-de-sac at about 1%. We have normal crown on the road, pushing everything to the gutter. And then when we get to the cul-de-sac area, that channel flow from the gutters heads into the filter strip, the 2-foot stone filter strip, which also has 3 feet of grass behind it to slow that water down, spread it out, and have it be a controlled entry into the soil area. I think that kind of covers, stormwater. If you guys have any specific questions, I can try to provide more detail if and when necessary.
Okay, you guys are ready for questions now then?
Sure.
All right, Martha.
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. I'm still trying to visualize this, and just so you know, I'm probably the resident expert on rain gardens on the commission. So what you're proposing is a rain garden that will capture all of the sheet flow from the road?
Correct.
And all be channeled into this central area in the middle of that cul-de-sac.
That's correct. That's the intent. Yes.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the connections between the road and the rain garden itself?
Sure. Barry, could you go back to the detail?
Yep.
I think that probably illustrates that the best. Kind of zoom in there closely. So around the preceding the rain garden, kind of right at the edge of the pavement there in the center, there'll be a 2-foot wide strip of stone that is, think of like a trench. And I think we specified that 2-foot ring to be 9 inches deep with a certain size stone. And then at the top layer of that would be like a pea gravel type situation. So water will hit that and go down into the trench, slow down a bit. And then once it gets to the inner ring of that 2-foot stone trench, then it hits a 3-foot grass strip as it comes down into the rain garden. Does that help?
Okay.
And so everything from the outer, so you have the cul-de-sac, and then on the outside of that, there's a curb and gutter section, which goes up to the grass strip and then sidewalk. All of that drains down towards the center of the cul-de-sac. So
Okay.
think of it as,
So everything's going to be pitched down into that center circle.
yeah, it's almost kind of like a bowl shape. If you
Okay.
can think of that, not exaggerated, but more of a saucer, and it goes down to the center of that
Okay.
the cul-de-sac.
And in my experience with rain gardens is that the sheet flow can be much bigger than you think it will be. So I just wonder if are you taking into account the size of stone that you will need to meet the area where the heaviest flow is going to be, for example?
Right.
So I'm wondering if your pea gravel is going to be, is it going to hold up?
Right. We talked about that, and it was kind of more of a form over function discussion, and we can change that if the board feels that that's not going to work. We have an average of 3 inches stone underneath that pea gravel, so that's a pretty good, it's not quite like a riprap apron type stone, but I think that's going to be large enough not to erode away. I mean, and also the slope is relatively slight. It's not your storm water is not coming down a steep slope, so the velocity and the energy associated with that is going to be not as significant, say, if it were coming down one of the larger hills in town.
I agree.
Mhm.
I agree.
Unfortunately, the detail is tough to put that scale on there, so it looks worse than it is on the detail.
Well, it's one reason why we're having this discussion now.
Yep,
Is
exactly.
because I've been working with rain gardens for at least 5 years in a situation where they're draining a parking area that is not as at a significant pitch, and I have been absolutely amazed at the amount and the velocity of water that comes in there. So I'm from experience. The other question I have is maintenance of this. And I don't know how long you plan to keep this, because I do understand that this is in an intermediate stage for further development later on. But have you considered a maintenance plan for this?
Yes, there's I detailed a fairly extensive maintenance plan in the stormwater report, and it's spelled out, what time of year to do which activity. And I'd like to, if I could, get back to your first comment about flow. In the 100-year event, we've calculated 2.7 CFS that would enter the rain garden from the entire watershed. So, more than a rain garden hose, but not a torrent of water coming down in there. So, but yes, we do have a maintenance plan description included in the stormwater management report.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Jason?
No questions at this time.
Ken?
I'm all set at this time.
I have a question regarding wintertime performance. How would this function in weather that we're having right now, like with an event yesterday where we had probably 4 or 5 inches of snow followed by an inch of rain, which got super saturated, and now it's totally a block of ice, everything. How does this function under this type of a condition?
It would actually, I think, function very well. What I would be more concerned about is, a summertime thunderstorm rather than 6, 7, 8 inches of snow that will melt at whatever rate. That's a slower rate than a big thunderstorm. So I think it would function.
Right, but the point I'm getting at is if the ground is frozen, if this freezes, and even with the weather we've had, we've had 2 degrees the other morning, 1 degree the morning before that. I've got to believe if there's any water that hasn't infiltrated, there's a good chance it's going to be frozen. And it eventually, in my eyes as an engineer, would seem to be a plug in this center of the cul-de-sac, that if we did have a big rainstorm with the weather variability we've been having, I mean, we've gone from frigid weather to rainstorms. If this is frozen, is that going to take the water? It seems like it wouldn't take the water in, and then we're going to pond, and we'll be backing out into the roadway, have a flooded roadway, and that's my concern. I'm not
There's
that
the overflow pipe at the top that shouldn't be frozen, that if it does freeze or any of that stuff, it should go out the overflow.
Okay, so you do have a function for an overflow.
Yes.
Okay, and where does that outlet to that overflow?
That outlet will go over to the to a flared end riprap area prior to going out into the natural soil.
Barry, you want to show them on plan where that is?
Yeah,
Come on, go. Up in here on the top corner, sort of come out the middle on a drain line to a flared end on this little slope
okay.
wrap area, and then out into the natural grass and undergrowth.
All right. So that should mitigate any flooding if it's not infiltrating it into the ground, and we do have that.
Correct. And you've got a considerable size of road there with a infiltration stone that's over the pavement, so it shouldn't, your depth of freezing underneath it, and by the time anything freezes around the edges, it'll seep in. I'm not worried about the thing freezing and not taking the water down eventually. We've got enough storage and capacity on top of the rain garden to take it before it even enters the road.
All right. What's the plans for the build out on the rest of this project? Schedule wise, what are you looking at for?
Schedule wise, we've got to apply for the permit, so I'm probably talking a year away.
All right. That's before you could break ground. Is that what you're saying? A year before you could break ground, or a year before?
Depending on when we get our permit, a little less than that, but
Okay.
We've got easily about 4 or 5 months of permitting to still continue. We need this to go first, and we got planning to go. So be really appreciative if we could get this segment of it approved.
Right. And just what was the reason for moving away from the detention pond again? What was the initial proposal?
By the time because of the existing grades,
Yeah.
by the time you put a drainage system in and get the flow enough by gravity, the pipe was discharging relatively close to the seasonal high groundwater, and we couldn't get enough storage over there for that.
Okay, that's because the newly discovered high groundwater that,
Exactly.
when you first came in, we sort of pointed out there might be an issue there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the reason for abandoning that then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think this is providing a far better design overall.
All right. Well, let's go to Brad.
Thank you, John. So I think you had a good point, as well as Martha. You both kind of touched on a couple of things that I had. And the biggest concern that I do have with the project, and we had a meeting with the project proponents last week as kind of a working group to go over the plans as well. I am very concerned about not having any drainage utilities within the road itself and relying on this rain garden. I don't think that you're going to get water sheeting off that road and into that garden in winter conditions. And I can tell you that because of the experience I've had in more than 2 decades here in Shrewsbury with responding to these problems that we have in the wintertime for a variety of issues. We have, drainage swales, other things, they get full of snow, ice, you lose your storage volume for that reason. So I think that what's in the center of that island, you're not going to have storage capacity in wintertime, for instance. Number 2, and I witnessed this in front of my house yesterday, as a matter of fact. I live at the end of a dead-end street without a cul-de-sac. The turnaround, unfortunately, happens to be my driveway. And with just a little bit of pavement from my driveway right at the end of the road, had quite a bit of water in the road. It had nowhere to go because the catch basin was blocked with snow. And it doesn't take much for melting snow or the rain that we had like yesterday to all of a sudden cause a water problem on that road. I knew if I didn't get out there immediately and free up that catch basin, that we would have icing conditions later on when the temperatures dropped again. And that's what we typically do experience in the wintertime. In a number of areas, we have problems with poor drainage in sections because of clogged basins. We have problems with people's sump pumps, for instance, that discharge towards the roadway. So you get a slow trickle of flow, and it's a little bit of ice, then more ice, then more ice, then more ice because of the flow. What you might see here, for instance, with the snow bankings all along the curbs. What gets plowed around that cul-de-sac, that's simply gonna become hard packed, form ice, and the water's not going to get through that to drain to the middle. It's only going to work under the best of conditions. I've got some concerns long term that can be addressed with, good maintenance, for instance, about water getting off that road into the middle with even summer conditions. Because what I've also seen for rain gardens or other LID infrastructure is, just in a short amount of time, because of leaves, grass, other things, if you're not constantly maintaining that grade, taking care of the vegetation, it doesn't take much for a little bit of a berm to even interrupt that sheet flow. So, my biggest concern is more from a public works type perspective, safety, and what's going to happen to that roadway. The other thing that I did have a concern about, and I'm not 100% sure, but at least looking at the stormwater management handbook, because we don't see a lot of these rain gardens. Typically with the vegetative filters, you do need to have that in place for the TSS credit for the rain garden. But my experience in having done some design and reviewing others with the vegetative filters is you've got to have a good 25 to 50 feet of that to get some pollutant removal and take credit for it. Here, you've only got a 5 foot wide strip. And as Martha mentioned, ideally you want the sheet flow to be even in areas, but what really happens is you find you've got more of a concentrated in certain spots, and you're going to have water kind of zipping across what's only the width of a driveway and not getting any pre-treatment in those areas. So that's really my two concerns on the stormwater front there.
Barry, do you mind if I respond to some of those?
Go ahead, Greg.
Be my guest.
I think the first note I made, there was a comment about snow and ice building up in the center and taking up the storage space. All of the storage of the rain garden is accounted for in the stone layer that is underground. So in theory, if the rain garden is getting sediment or snow in there, that volume is not replacing stormwater volume. All of the volume that we need to attenuate the storms is underground in the stone. So we do have space above the stone, but we're not taking that volume we're not using that volume for credit in our calculations. It's a bonus, so to speak. In terms of there not being any catch basins, I think that was another point, that they can get clogged with snow and ice. I kind of see that as an advantage, a design advantage here. There are no basins to get clogged, and water, when snow and ice melts, it will find the downhill pathway into the rain garden, alleviating maintenance issues. No deep sumps to have to fill up and empty out. That's part of what is attractive to LID, is the lower maintenance responsibilities and costs. The comment about the filter strip needing to be wider, in the manual, I used the recommended strips that are in the DEP manual under rain gardens. So that's to get the TSS established. Also, the depth of the trench of that stone that first outer ring, that's additional storage volume that's not included in our storage calc. So there's additional water quality volume right there, taking care of that.
As well as the first flush.
That's right. So I think I as respectfully as I can, kind of I see this from a different vantage point. I see it as yes, there's maintenance, and absolutely I agree that in order for the rain garden to work, there needs to be, limbs that are dead need to be removed. Plants that aren't successful need to be replaced. The leaf blowers or rakes need to be used to clear out anything that would cause any kind of clogging or sedimentation to occur. So there is some active work that needs to happen more than just on an annual basis. It's a seasonal activity. Visual inspections probably twice a month during key periods of the year. So there's definitely maintenance activity that would need to happen ongoing.
If I can also just make sure everybody's aware that while it's a public entrance where Greenbrier is, the rest of the cul-de-sac and any kind of building out will be private and maintained by the development itself.
Can you blow out the map and show us that, Barry? Where the public and the private sides lie?
Right here's the current dividing line of private and public.
Where's that, Barry? I can't see.
It's the big. My arrow's not coming up.
Yeah, I see it now. If you move it around a bit, okay, I see it there.
Yeah, that's the dividing line of the current property. Public.
Okay, so anything below that is public, you're saying?
That's correct.
And anything above that line is private?
Correct.
And does that correspond roughly with the high point that Greg was talking about in the road?
High point is just below that by about 20 feet.
Barry,
go
ahead, John.
Go ahead.
Oh, Barry, I have the high point shown. You can kind of see the spot elevation there.
Right, these things are all
further down, Barry.
Oh, yeah, sorry, down here. High point.
Where's that, Barry? Can you move the cursor a bit so we can? I see it. It's way down. It's pretty close.
Down there, yeah.
It's way down there. So everything else would be going toward the top of the page.
That way. Yep.
And toward the private side.
Correct.
So if there is a problem here in the future and it does freeze and you do have a total frozen lake up there, that really is going to fall onto whoever owns this property in the future.
Correct.
All right. Let me go back to the commission. I know a few members didn't have questions. Jason, did you have anything more to add? No?
No, I mean, I think I would echo Brad's comments.
Okay, and
of some concern here that if there's an event like there was yesterday, what's to say the rain garden's going to capture this runoff?
All right. And Ken, more?
Yeah, so just so I'm clear, the cul-de-sac, the rain garden, as proposed, is going to be owned and maintained by a private entity.
Correct.
It will not be, the town will have no responsibility in the future either. In other words, this is going to go, when the project is built out, this will stay with the project.
Correct.
And the rain garden is constructed to current stormwater management standards.
Correct.
And your maintenance plan, as Martha asked, it reflects all the additional maintenance that you would have to do as you described in your presentation.
Correct.
I'm good.
Okay, Ken. Martha,
Miss-
do you have
Miss-
any?
I have one minor question, which is what will the relative depth of the rain garden plantings be? In other words, how far below the surface of the road will the soil be?
I believe it's 6 inches. Did I miss it? $458.4 down to the top of the let's see, 459.2 to 458.4.
Okay, so that's about 6 to 8 inches.
Yep.
Okay. Many of the rain gardens that I've seen are lower. I don't, if that's a way to address some of the commission's concerns about the amount of water that could be intercepted when everything freezes. I, as a member, I would be fine with that. I don't think it's going to be so low that the plants aren't going to be able to grow because they're not receiving any sunlight, for example.
Okay, you all set, Martha? Yeah, Barry, on your overflow from the emergency overflow in the middle of the rain garden,
Yeah.
that elevation is below the lowest point of the roadway, the paved roadway, I take it?
Yes.
And how big is that pipe? The overflow pipe?
I believe it has a 6-inch pipe.
Okay,
We could go larger.
all right. I want to get back in with Brad. Brad?
Yes.
Yeah, does that change anything in your mind with the amount of it that's held in private hands versus, public, to alleviate some of the concerns? I mean, would we have to respond to that if there was a problem up there? I doubt it, right?
Well, it alleviates some of the concerns, meaning it's not going to be public works staff, for instance, going out there if something bad should happen and trying to correct the problem.
Right.
But the reality is we do get all the calls, and it is a standard of care kind of type matter. And from what I understand too, this portion of the roadway that's in front of us this evening is going to lead to a much bigger project, for instance. So is this a section that while right now at face value it looks like it's a small road with not much around it, but is it something you're going to see many vehicle trips in the future throughout the course of a day? And if you do run into the conditions that I've been describing earlier this evening, how problematic is that going to be for people using that roadway?
Right.
But you're right. The DPW would not have to maintain that cul-de-sac.
Okay. All right. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this hearing? All right. I'm not hearing anybody come in with any. How does the commission feel tonight? Do we have enough information, do you believe, to close it and make a decision? Or
I'm
Go ahead.
fine with it. I mean, it's ultimately going to be on the developer and the owner of the project to maintain this, and it's going to be constructed to current stormwater standards. So I'm good.
okay. Rest of the commission feel okay to close it too? Give me a shake of the head.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, there being no further questions, we'll close the hearing. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. And Ken, it's great to see you. I wish to see you on somewhere else than on
Yeah.
Zoom.
Nice seeing you, Barry.
Have a good one.
Okay, we have another continued public hearing. It's regarding the notice of intent filed by 7 Cheryl Realty Trust for the construction of a wetland replication area at 581 to 587 South Street. Scott?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Scott Goddard, representing the applicant in this case. And I think there still are 2 related hearings on this topic. And the purpose of tonight's meeting, and I'll keep it brief, is more of an administrative and procedural discussion. I wanted to kind of update you as to where we stood after the last discussion, the discussions that I've had with the applicant and the engineer, as well as some follow-up discussion with Brad. So I don't think there's a need for me to bring up the site plans and all tonight. If you remember, initially there was a notice of intent submitted for a new subdivision that was a replacement of an old project from years back. And we found some discrepancies in the crossing design, not the design so much as it was the installation of the crossing from the prior owner. New owner is trying to rectify that. We proposed a new notice of intent that involved basically exclusively after the fact wetland mitigation in the form of replication. So that's where we stood. I was sent back at the last meeting to go and discuss with the applicant some options that came up at the meeting, most notably the absence of the existing culvert to meet stream crossing standards. I think that was kind of the big takeaway that came from that, because if we're going to have an additional even 1 or 3 feet, something of that nature, to widen it, then the question from DEP was, well, what about stream crossing standards? I acknowledged to this board that I didn't think the design that was approved by this board some years ago, I don't think that met stream crossing standards. It was basically a narrow pipe. I believe it's an 18-inch pipe that's in the ground right there. So here's what happened since then. I've discussed this with the engineer. I've discussed it with the applicant. The applicant is willing to consider putting in a stream crossing standard culvert for what will amount to a new crossing in this location. That's going to require a substantial redesign of this crossing. It's going to result in a much larger crossing than what is there right now. I've gone out and I've measured myself the stream and its width in different locations, both up gradient and down gradient. There's not much of a stream to speak of here. It's more of a pass-through kind of flowed, semi-concentrated wetland situation, but there is enough of a bank to discern within the BVW. So I did measure that out, and we're working on a new design for that crossing. So I brought this up in a conversation with Brad maybe a week ago, and let him know that's the plan that we plan to come forward with. So the question that I have for this board, and I brought it up for Brad for discussion, is, well, what would this look like in terms of the 2 notices of intent that we currently have filed? I guess there's 2 options. One option is that we continue with a new stream crossing design for the notice of intent that was for the fill and new replication, or we consider the application that was already before you for basically an improved crossing called the cul-de-sac, but including a completely new design for the crossing and the culvert and the replication that will go along with it. So I have a few thoughts kind of on the pluses and minuses of here, but before I come before you with the whole new package, the question really to this board is, should I withdraw 1 or 2 of these notices of intent, knowing that I'm going to come in with this basically new design that's going to have to be subject to some additional review? Should I withdraw, I don't know, well, anyways, I have a few thoughts, but I wanted to put it to the board for review, and maybe Brad can share some of the content of the conversation him and I had about this topic about a week ago as well.
Brad? Brad,
Yes.
can you
Yep.
comment on that, what your thoughts are?
So in terms of let's start with the potential for projects itself, and then we can touch base with procedural issues after that, I guess. I've had some conversations with Mr. Goddard. I've been out into the field a few times for this project. You know, we've had some internal discussions too. I think looking at the project as a whole, and also wearing, you know, the conservation hat as well as my DPW hat, let's say, what I was thinking was that if the walls that are there were to be ripped out, you put something in that meets stream crossing standards, you build something that meets subdivision control standards in terms of the roadway width, and keep in mind that's going to require it to be a little bit wider than what's there and what was proposed at this point. But I think from a safety and maintenance perspective, and you know, functionality perspective, it makes sense as well. As well as looking upstream, you know, we did see there's an old farmer crossing upstream where the initial replication area was proposed. Some of that with this most recent application was proposed to be excavated for replication area, but the reality is there's additional stone that, you know, completely spans what was the original BVW at one point in time. So you have another impoundment there. So if we, you know, for instance, removed all of that, and you know, and we can talk about how much replication credit you allow, or things of the nature, but I think it makes sense from a stream habitat perspective to remove the impoundment upstream, do the stream crossing that meets stream crossing standards. That's a significant improvement on its own. If the applicant's willing to do that, I think we should also allow them to make that roadway a little bit wider to provide additional benefit to the town, to make a road that conforms to subdivision standards. The only other thing in addition to that I don't think was mentioned, or if it was, I missed it, is our policy in terms of the structure offsets that we have in that for 30 feet to wetlands. There was initial concern with the filing before us that showed I think there was about a couple of them that didn't quite meet that. So I would like to see that they meet the 30-foot offset as well. You know, I think if all of those conditions could be met, I would be more or less in favor of, you know, building it as I just described it. I think it would be an all-around benefit. That's my take on the project itself. Procedurally, I don't know if we discussed what I had heard tonight, which was, you know, withdraw both of them and file a new one. But actually, to me, that makes the most sense, just to kind of clean everything up, because you're going to have different categories. You've got some completely different scopes here and there. I would be okay with that. I know the commission early on wanted a separate filing to kind of address the old outstanding issue, get that into compliance first. But if the commission's okay with moving forward with conceptually what I'm suggesting at this point as well, I don't see the point in having multiple filings, and it just kind of confuses and muddies it a little bit. I would like to see everything wrapped all into one personally. I think it also adds some confusion at the DEP level, and I think there was an initial comment letter from them as well, you know, to kind of clean up the old one before you even file this. But I don't think, as you know, at the same time, they understood what was really outstanding on the initial one. It wasn't something that you could quickly get a certificate of compliance, for instance. But that's, you know, to me, it makes sense to do all of those things and put it into one filing, whether that's withdraw both of them and submit a new one, or withdraw, you know, one of the ones before us and continue working on the other. You know, that's really up to the commission. that's my take. If I can add any clarification for the commission, I'd be happy to.
Okay, and Brad, just to go clarify a bit, if that road were to be upgraded, I know to meet stream standards, it's a significant redo of that roadway anyhow, because I'm assuming the culvert would become a box culvert. Is that right, Scott?
So yeah, I would have to design it to make the standard. So I don't know if it would be a box per se, but it would be much larger than it is right now. It would have to allow for the openness ratio and the 1.2 bank full width. So whatever the shape of it ends up being is to be determined. We're not there yet, but yeah, it would be a much bigger crossing. Right. And then I'm glad Brad also mentioned too that about that upstream impoundment. I did go look at that pretty carefully, and that's a pretty substantial issue here. If less than 100 feet from this crossing, there is an old crossing with no culvert in it at all. It's simply just truckloads of stone, big stones, piled right across the entire span of that BVW. And what is present for a stream simply just finds its way through void spaces in the stone from one side to the other. So the old application didn't contemplate removal of that at all. And we're now talking about removing that whole system. That's going to be a real plus for this wetland. By the way, even if we left the current culvert in place, it's still an upgrade getting rid of that thing. But we are proposing to do the stream crossing standards at this case. I think it makes sense if I think about this whole situation, that the after the fact wetland replication to keep the current crossing, that's not even on the table anymore. So that to me seems like an easy one to withdraw. The existing application for the subdivision, I think we can, just so we don't have to re-advertise and everything, I think we can just amend that application with a whole new set of site plans, make sure the fees are correct and all that good stuff, but the abutter notifications, the public hearings set up, all the paperwork that goes with, that's all the same. So I think it's probably going to be the easiest administratively to withdraw the notice of intent for wetland replication, keep the original one, and we'll ask for a continuation for that tonight, and to come back before you with a nice new set of plans and the paperwork that goes with it. That's what I think makes the most sense in this case. Right.
And where I was going, Scott, before with the question on the amount of work that would be required for the new roadway because of the meeting stream crossing standards, a good portion of this existing roadway would have to be dismantled and rebuild. As Brad said, it would probably be better for the town in the long run from a maintenance and safety standpoint. And the question I have, though, is you've already, or Rashid, I believe, has already broached the question of a waiver on the sidewalks on both sides. It would be nice to be able to still try to minimize the amount of width on the roadway, so you could bring the pavement up to meet, the town standards, but in terms of the sidewalks, still maintain only one on one side of the road. Is that your intent? Were you thinking that far ahead to think of that?
Well, I wasn't even thinking about a wider road until Brad suggested that if the applicant would consider it. So that's something that I'll work with the applicant and the engineer and the town on to try to satisfy everybody here. But there's a balance that I'm hearing between safety and appropriate access and road width, but not overdoing it for wetland protection matters and meeting the standards of appropriate replication and so forth.
Right.
So let me mull that over.
Okay.
Bring that back to Rashid, but I hear what you're saying, and I think we can try to find the sweet spot here.
Yeah, because if we can still make it up in the replication areas, like you're saying, removing all of the rocks and things too, maybe there's a net benefit to the wetlands overall. Exactly. And at the same time, the enhancement and the safety and maintenance on the roadway. But the one thing that concerns me is the point Brad brought up about the proposed, this is the subsequent filing you guys made on the subdivision layout. And we did have a lot of problems when that initially came in front of us with setbacks to the wetland on homes. And I even believe it went as far as the detention basin didn't even have the required 10-foot wide roadway for maintenance purposes. So there were a lot of, weaknesses on that plan.
Yeah, no question about it.
And I really wouldn't even want to, go forward, with this roadway approval unless I knew the subsequent subdivision being proposed behind it was going to meet our guidance, so I would take that back to Rashid also.
Yeah, I think you're gonna see there's been a change in the engineer assigned to this project.
Okay.
So you're gonna see a reworked site plan here, and I
Okay.
hear your comments, and they seem very appropriate, all things considered. So I'm gonna work with the applicant, the engineer, to make sure that what you end up seeing next time around, will please and meet the intents of the board.
All right. Let's just go for questions from the commission so everybody can have a chance to ask. Martha?
Yes, thank you. So Scott, thanks for opening up the discussion about the sidewalks. I just want to put in 2 cents from work with open space, that there is a desire in town for walkability. And so while I do appreciate I appreciate that fine line of balancing wetlands protection with open space, with community linkage and safe walking opportunities. Thank you.
Jason?
No comments other than, thank you, Scott, for your work on this. I appreciate the owner's ability to come back and talk through all these issues, and I'm really open to seeing what's next. And I just wanted to let you know I appreciate it.
Good, thank you.
Ken?
I too echo what John was saying with regards to our guidance and our setbacks. I would really like to see that on the plans. I really not happy with the additional width of the road, but if you have setbacks and follow our guidance along with the DEP letter that was presented last meeting, I would like to see that, all those questions answered, and I would like to see our guidance adhered to. That's it.
Okay. Brad?
So I guess the one last thing that I would add is, hearing some of the concerns tonight. So, again, my DPW hat, conservation hat, sometimes they conflict. So if the commission, I'm not opposed to keeping the roadway width, for instance, to what was proposed. I mean, it could certainly be rebuilt to that width with an appropriate stream cross and, some improvements upstream, things of that nature. But I think, to me anyway, all of those improvements that both Scott and I mentioned earlier tonight, I think would, possibly warrant the consideration of a slightly wider road to make the roadway improvements. But it certainly could still be constructed to, the width that was initially proposed with the other improvements as well. So that's really up to the commission too. And I guess, ultimately, the applicant's looking for some guidance tonight in terms of procedurally how to proceed with the application. So we really should give them some direction that way, definitively.
All right. Brad, are you recommending that they withdraw the application tonight? Or is that something he can discuss with his client and then withdraw it before the next meeting?
I guess I'm not necessarily opposed to running with the one that was done for the subdivision filing, for instance. I guess the one part I'm hesitant with is the amount of changes that we're discussing. If there's any additional category fees, things of that nature, as well as because we're in a different calendar year, does that abutters list change? Should we be reconsidering re-notifying abutters if there's a significant change to this project, even though it's been an open and ongoing public hearing? But it wouldn't oppose me to just run with the one that was filed for the subdivision and eliminate the other and do it that way.
So, Brad, are you saying so they would withdraw the one that we're currently working on right at this moment, which is the construction of the wetland replication, and then wrap the roadway into the subsequent one, which is the subdivision, and have one filing altogether?
Yeah, I would think the best way to do it would be one filing. I mean, I honestly, I think to run two parallel is just going to be more confusing, but that's really up to the commission. I think, at least in my mind, I could see what the commission was thinking early on, because we didn't think there was really a limited project that warranted additional wetland fill because of the violation that was there. Things of that nature. So kind of have that second one to clean that up first before considering the other. But I think in my mind, what makes me believe that we should just eliminate that one now and run with one is I think what is being offered is going to be a benefit. So if it's going to be a benefit, let's work with the applicant and make the process as least complicated as possible.
Right. I would not. I totally agree with you. And the only thing I don't want to lose is, the fact that the proposal for the subdivision layout will meet our guidance. And the danger of breaking it into two different ones is there's no leverage. In other words, if we did one order of conditions for the roadway and the replication, we could condition it that any subdivision work would also meet the guidance, and it's formalized in the order of conditions. By now wrapping the roadway in with the subdivision, I would like to see an assurance that we are going to have the applicant meet the Shrewsbury Conservation guidance. And, that's my concern of just having one, but.
So if I could comment on that, John. So we did have that other subdivision at Nelson Point. Went through a very similar process. We approved the subdivision roadway with the lot layouts and the conceptual home layouts on that. The developer at the time showed that they could meet the guidance that we have that the commission required with specifically the 30-foot offsets to the wetlands with the houses. So, and after the fact, they came in with the individual filings, and in all but one, they kept that 30-foot offset, but they reduced one to, I think it was 20 feet or maybe even less. If you remember, the commission denied that because of the guidance. It got appealed to DEP. DEP looked at the original order of conditions, which happened to show those house offsets, 30 feet, yep. So they actually affirmed that denial. They stood by the commission on that one. And ultimately, the developer came back and refiled with that 30-foot offset as initially proposed. So I think it's really a matter of being proactive, setting the expectations early on that we're doing now.
Correct. But Rashid would have to take that initiative to make sure that those proposed footprints would meet the 30-foot offset for that to work. And that's what the Nelson Point developer did. He showed us a plan with those footprints all meeting it, and that was the basis for our ability to win the appeal.
Well, I think the other thing you have is that outstanding certificate of compliance. you condition that certificate of compliance on, in order of conditions that both the applicant and the commission can agree on.
That's good. That's a good point.
You get some, future order shortly from now, hopefully, for instance, and that everybody's okay with, and then you issue the certificate at that point. Otherwise, you still have that outstanding issue.
That's true too. Yep, you're right, Brett. Okay. All right. So, Scott, tonight, do you want to bring this back to Rashid, and then you can withdraw this at any point?
I mean, I think it makes sense right here on the spot to withdraw the notice
Okay.
of intent for the replication only. That one there, I'm not hearing any benefit to keeping that open from anybody.
All right.
Unless there's
I
an
didn't know
objection, then from anybody, speak up. But otherwise, I'll just verbally request that to be withdrawn right now. You can take it off your future agenda.
Okay. I didn't know if you had the authority without going back to Rashid on that, but
I think Ken has a question, John.
Yeah.
go ahead.
So I would like, as part of the withdrawal, a letter from the applicant saying that they will meet our guidance with the setbacks.
Well, Mr. Polito, if I could address you directly through the chair, I'm not the design engineer in this. This is being redesigned, looked at right now. I hear loud and clear the message and the intent from the commission. I get it. I understand what you're looking for, and that's going to be my intent to relay that message loud and clear to the team. And there could be a denied project if this project doesn't seem to meet any of the performance standards set forth by this commission, right? We're not guaranteed an approval just because we submit a notice of intent. So my goal, and I'll tell you, my goal is to help that project to meet those standards. And if I have that within my power, and I hope that I do, then that's what I'm going to do. But I can't promise the commission what a future plan that I'm not involved in designing is going to look like.
Ken,
Well, then,
the certificate of compliance is the one thing we have over them on this particular parcel, the outstanding certificate of compliance. So, I mean, I'm hoping it never gets down to that everybody's playing above board. And but I would talk to Rashid, Scott, and pass on what you're hearing from the commission about the assurance that this subdivision will meet the commission's guidance going forward. And I think that will go a long way in helping the future reviews on this project. Okay.
Absolutely. Understood. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this discussion right now? It's actually an open hearing, but. Okay, I'm not hearing any. So you've officially requested that you withdraw this notice of
Yes.
intent, and we will. Do we have to vote on this, Brad?
I would suggest you formalize that.
Yeah, all right. Why don't we, Ken, you want to make a motion that,
yeah, make a motion, we allow the applicant, 7 Realty Trust, the construction of a Wetland Replication Act, 581, 587 South Street, to allow the applicant to withdraw this notice.
Second.
okay, all in favor, we'll do a roll call. Martha,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
and John, aye. Okay, Scott, you're all set.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, you too.
And the other hearing, you're just going to continue, right?
Yeah, we'll continue that till our next meeting. And look, why don't you just stay on for a second? Our next continued public hearings regarding the notice of intent filed by 7 Cheryl Realty Trust for the construction of an access roadway, sidewalk, and utilities at 581 to 587 South Street. And the applicant has requested recommended that we continue this hearing. And you want to make it February to our next meeting, Scott?
That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. It'll be continued to our next meeting, which is February 15th, 2022. Good night, Scott.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Martha, would you like to read the notice on 116 Boylston Circle? Do you have?
I do have that notice. Okay. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Paul and Kristen Balutis, 116 Boylston Circle, Shrewsbury, have filed a notice of intent for the construction of a two-car garage addition at 116 Boylston Circle. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening. The legal notice had December 21, 2021, but we are now at January 18, 2022, and we are on Zoom.
Okay, I see Paul there. Paul, you want to introduce yourself and give us a bit of a presentation?
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. I'm Paul Balutis. I'm owner and resident of 116 Boylston Circle. And our filing was in regard to a two-car garage that we would like to build. Let me just share. So hopefully you can see my plot plan here. What we're proposing is a two-car garage addition to our home at 116 Boylston Circle. The area in pink is the proposed addition. It's basically taking the place between an existing original garage from 1947 that's on the property. We're filling in the distance between that old building after we tear it down, taking over a paved area between that old existing garage and our home. And that's essentially it. As you guys can probably see, the existing garage indicated was a non-conforming structure. So we went before the Shrewsbury Zoning Board of Appeals in August of 2021. They granted us a variance to proceed with the proposed addition as shown here. So now we would just like to get the commission's review of us and see what the next steps are. One other thing I'd just like to mention is back in 2011, we had actually done a bunch of work on the property adding to the house. So we did have professional review of our plot, including wetland buffers and a bunch of other things that went into the notice of conditions from 2011. So we're familiar with probably the conditions that we get proposed. Over the last 2 years, the town actually had a very successful drainage improvement that actually cut through our property 2018 and 2019. So one of the questions I had for the commission was, since in 2011, we spent a lot time and money reviewing our small half-acre lot for our addition at that time. And then the town has obviously spent a great deal of successful money and time going through the drainage improvement that cuts through our property. Is there enough knowledge about our plot that the commission can essentially review what we're proposing without making a more formalized professional plot plan? I'm essentially looking to connect these two gray boxes that are not inside the wetland area.
Paul, is the wetland off of your property? Can you go? I know you shared a screen which showed where the wetland looked like, where the wetland line was.
Sure.
And just to give us some idea of distances to the wetland that puts you into the Conservation Commission.
Sure. So probably the best view is, I just pulled this off of the GIS website today. This is town property just behind my property.
We can't see it, Paul.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you see a view of?
Yep, we
All
can see
right.
it now.
Thank you. So this is 116. This is a property in question.
Right.
The town property is just aft of that. Our area of our proposed project is between these two brown boxes.
Right. What's the distance, Paul, from that green area, which I take it must be can you back up a screen? Yeah, the distance from the green area, is that the edge of the wetland? Is that the delineation of the wetland?
I believe so. I just want to go back to this is a town plot plan from 2018, where the wetland buffer is established here.
Okay.
That's at least probably 80 feet from my house.
All right.
And you can see the 100-foot buffer
I see it now. Yep.
cutting right through there.
Okay. So can you describe a little bit about what this construction is going to entail, Paul, in terms of foundation work? And is it a slab on grade or?
Yep. So we're envisioning a slab on grade. It's going to be a 2-story, essentially a garage with a room on top of the garage that connects to our existing home. If you notice what I'm showing right now, this, by the word proposed, this existing part of my house with the hatch marks on it. I have a view of what we're looking at. So this is a side view of the home. This is the existing house. This is the portion of our home that is closest to the wetland. This portion is the garage with a room on top, forward of, our backyard. This is the street side of the home over here.
Okay. All right. Let's go to questions. Martha?
I don't have any questions at this point. Thank you.
Jason?
I'm all set.
Ken?
No, I think that the new addition and garage isn't any closer to the wetlands than what was there. So I'm actually good with it.
Okay. Brad?
Thank you. So I have a couple of things. One is a question for Mr. Blutis. Now, you sent me the assessor list. Thank you for that. Did you happen to notice if any of the property owners changed from that list versus the ones that you notified?
Yes, I did. Mr. Stone, if I can address you directly through the chair. I actually, when I notified the abutters about a week ago, I actually checked the Worcester Registry of Deeds showing that one of the abutters has actually changed hands, but the Shrewsbury official list of the abutters still showed my old neighbor's name. So I addressed the abutters letter to my new neighbor based on the Worcester Registry of Deeds.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then the other thing, so I do recall this project, it was about 10 years ago. I think you might have said 2011, so that makes sense.
Yep.
I think the consultant was Matt Merrill at the time, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So, and I know you referenced the original file, and unfortunately that's in an archive in another building in a basement somewhere at this point too. So I couldn't pull that and, provide that to the commission in short time of being any help to them as well. But the wetlands do creep closer to the structure than what's shown on GIS, in my recollection. It actually moves from where that drainage easement was It kind of moves diagonally closer to the road as you get to the far side of your property there. So it's the buffer zone shown on that drainage plan isn't accurate by any means. And I remember from your previous filing, it's certainly different than what was on GIS. I don't necessarily think that's really material to your project, for instance, other than that, if the commission were to approve it tonight, what I would suggest to them is to not affirm that wetland buffer zone or any ABW line that's shown on any plan before them at this point. I don't think that there's any risk in any wetland being altered because of this project, although, I mean, we know any project has that potential, but the wetlands is still significantly enough away from the home that I think if we set the erosion control close to the existing structure, set that as the limit of work. I mean, we'll know if there's any soil beyond the defined limit of work, there's a violation there. But it's not, there isn't anything the commission has tonight that accurately shows the wetland boundary or the buffer zone. So if you're comfortable with what's shown to condition the project, you just need to make note of that and be aware. And the other option is to have an updated site plan that either provides a new BBW line or has the wetland scientist or the consultant check that pre-existing one and then reaffirm that through the commission's decision. I don't suspect, having been out there when the town did the drainage work, I didn't see anything nearby, and I was on Mr. Ludis's property to get back there. I didn't see anything that would tell me that wetlands changed in location. So I don't think there's anything. Wetlands are dynamic, but nothing looked different than when I had been out there years ago.
Okay, Brad. Do we have any questions or comments from the public on this hearing? All right, I don't hear any. Can the commission give me a nod of their head if they feel comfortable enough to close this hearing tonight with the condition that Brad noted to state that we are not affirming the wetland line? Does everyone agree that we can close the hearing?
I do.
Martha's yes, Ken's yes, Jason? Yes. Okay.
I do.
All right. Okay, there being no further questions or comments, we're going to close the hearing. Okay, Paul?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Martha, we have a new public hearing. Can you read the notice, please?
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Modish Nest LLC, 38 Appaloosa Drive, Shrewsbury, has filed a notice of intent to develop a new single-family house with a subsurface drainage system, paved driveway, and landscaping at 75 High Street. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, December 21, 2021. We are now at January 18, 2022, in the conference room, Shrewsbury Senior Center, 98 Maple Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass. And we are not meeting in person, but here on the internet.
Okay, I see Bob Murphy out there. Bob, this is yours.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, that's great. I have a file which I'd like to share with you, but I have no clue on how to get it there. It's sitting on my desktop at the moment. I understand there's a button somewhere if you want to share.
It's at the bottom of your screen, Brad said, and it's the box with the arrow pointing up.
Okay.
Okay.
Present your entire screen, a window, I guess. Present the entire screen, I guess.
I'm not sure.
I think entire screen would work for you.
Okay, select window or screen. Oh my goodness. Screen one, I guess. Oh, I have two screens. I think it's screen two. Okay, allow sharing your entire screen. Okay. Now I could
Now click on your file.
Okay, so I can go over to, say, the desktop. Let me see if I can find that. Okay. Wow, there it is. You are sharing your screen.
Can you make that full screen, Bob?
Yeah, I'm going back to the other screen. It says sharing. You are sharing your screen.
Yep, well, that's fine, but all you had to do is push the maximize button, Bob,
Okay.
because right now, we've lost it.
Oh.
Okay, go. There you go.
I think I could drag it in.
No, you can't.
I think, Bob, you've taken over the whole meeting here.
I think Bob left. He'll be back.
I think you're right, Martha. All right, why don't we sit tight for a minute?
So I would just like to say that I got an email earlier from Brad that said there would be no legal notices for this meeting.
Seriously? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think what he meant to say or meant to convey was that there would be no new legal notices for this meeting, because I think we may have read these last week or last month.
Oh, maybe we did.
Yeah.
We might have.
So we were lucky that he included them in this month's meeting.
Good.
Does anybody have Mr. Murphy's number to call him and let him know that he needs to come back in?
He's got to realize it pretty soon that he's off.
There he is.
Oh, you're back, Bob. Bob,
But you're muted.
You're muted,
Okay.
Bob. Unmute your button.
Okay, so now I hit the arrow, present now. I'll hit that. I'll say
Yes.
your entire screen. Block, select the window. Well, if I do screen 2, I wonder if you could see that, or screen 1. See, I have 2 screens on my computer.
Yeah.
I think I better use screen 2.
Well, Bob, you have to put.
We'll help you.
Yeah. Okay, here he comes.
You are presenting your screen.
Yeah. Just go slow, Bob, so you don't.
Yeah. So open up your file.
Can I drag and drop it into the?
No, you cannot. Just
Oh.
open it.
Okay. There it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, can you make that particular file full screen? There you go. Yes.
Make that.
No.
full?
Yes,
Okay.
that one.
Okay. So I guess I don't see you, but you can see the picture.
Yes.
Correct.
We can see it.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good. I guess the picture is more important than my pretty face. So basically what we have on the upper right-hand corner, there's a larger detail of the existing wall, the boulder wall that was built, and part of that area, if you can see the arrow that I have, we determined with Paul McManus and I and Brad determined that this area here had been a wetland. It was filled when they did the wall. So we decided to do a replication over to the left, and we have the native shrubs and all that for the replication area. It's slightly larger, but that's not a problem because there's plenty of room there to do it. The idea is that we would add a lot more erosion controls to the base of the work. There is a trickle, a flow that's coming out of a drainage area above. So I put a second row of mainly silt fence just to protect it during construction. And erosion controls above and below the replication area as well. This project, the notice of intent was filed after the fact. They had started the work. The contractor was not aware of wetlands, whatever. So Paul McManus and I went in and determined that there definitely was wetland, and there had been about 150 square feet of fill. So we have 230 square feet of replication in that area. The rest of the site, there's an existing foundation within the 50-foot buffer zone. The driveway is gravel. It's to be above. That area is all essentially constructed at this time. The main concern here was that they wanted to determine if a notice of intent was necessary, and it was, and to make replication of area that had been altered. So that's really the reason for this notice of intent, was to bring the project up to speed relative to the regulations. That's pretty much it. I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Martha.
So this notice of intent is it's not to construct the wetland replication area. It is to approve the site plan for the house?
Well, we filed it as a single family house, so you're doing both, I guess. You're
okay.
This is an after the fact. The foundation is already in place, but the project was stopped. They got a verbal cease and desist, so they stopped all the work on the site work. So that, because there was no notice filed, we filed a notice of intent for a single family house, and as a result of that, we made a determination of the wetlands.
Okay.
And we determined that so it's filed as a single family house with a driveway and wetlands replication. Like I say, the wall that you see, that's in place, and the wall is structurally, it's a good wall. We have a little more work to tighten it up with basically choking the large rocks with smaller stones, things like that. The wall's in fairly good shape. So it's both. It's filing for a single family house within the buffer zone and replicating some wetlands that had been filled.
And it looks on the, I'm looking sideways because I have a second screen too, and that's where I have your plan blown up, so I can read it.
Okay.
I guess I'm a little confused by the rocks in the bottom corner where I thought you were talking about the replication area. So perhaps you can help me understand the plans a little bit better, because I'm seeing the words wet underneath the drawings of the rocks where it says top of wall.
That's the area that was filled. Yes.
That was filled. So are you proposing to remove the fill, or I guess I don't understand the wall.
Okay, the wall is basically to hold the slope that is proposed. It's existing now. You see the grading above the wall, 544, 540, that area. That is existing. All of those grades, that work is all existing. And the original plan had showed a wall, a retaining wall in that area. The contractor dug up all these boulders. The boulders had been dumped in this area where we found the wetland. A previous owner had dumped 50 or 60 very large boulders in that area. So what the contractor did was to clean it up and built the wall in the area that had previously been filled by all the stones. He cleaned it up, built a wall there, not realizing that it had been that it was a filled wetland. This area had been filled prior to the applicant even buying it. So what we did was to clean it up, and then after the wall was constructed, we determined that there had been wetland there, basically by going right up to the edge of the wall, augering it. And we did augering above the wall in the area of elevation 540, where it says 540. And we determined that that was upland. There was, no modeling of the soil there at all. So this wall is an existing constructed wall that was built prior to any notice of intent being filed. We feel that it's a good wall. It's a retaining wall. It's holding the slope. And the idea is to leave that in place and just replicate where it had been built. But as I say, if you look on you can look on some of the Google photos prior to this property being purchased, and there was a very large pile of boulders right in that area. And they didn't bring any boulders on the site, to construct it. These rocks were all there. They just used them, but they cleaned it up a little because it was kind of a mess.
So, and forgive me, but I am not a contractor. Could you please describe what you mean by cleaning up?
Well, it was a pile of boulders, just helter-skelter pile of.
So you organized it?
100, like up to 100 boulders. I mean, it was just a big pile of boulders. So the contractor, he moved them all to the side, and then he rebuilt the wall with the existing rocks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And when I say cleaned it up, it was a mess. I mean, it was just rocks, strewn around. It was not safe by any means because they weren't stabilized. This fellow builds stone walls. It's one of his fortes. So he rearranged the rocks in a proper position so that you could walk on them and it wouldn't be dangerous.
Bob, you used those rocks wherever the slope was 2-to-1. Isn't that where you ended up using the big boulders?
Yeah, the slope on the wall it's roughly a 2-to-1 wall. It goes up about 8 feet in a distance of about 16 feet. So it's about 2-to-1. Roughly.
Yeah, so I saw some images you had there with the boulders all thrown or, scattered around the site. So that's what he incorporated into the 2-to-1 slope stabilization.
Right.
And then
exactly.
wherever you were at 3-to-1, you had basically a vegetated, cover to stabilize your 3-to-1 slopes. That's what I could garner off your plans.
Yeah, the 3-to-1 area is right now it's rough dirt. There's a hole right now in the area where the subsurface drainage system goes. That's the hatched area in the buffer zone line, the 25-foot buffer zone line. There's a hatched area. There's a subsurface drainage area there, and right now it's a big hole in the ground. And part of the problem is when they excavated the foundation and the driveway, there was a lot of groundwater on this site. They were running into a lot of groundwater. And so they put a lot of 2-inch stone and riprap below the driveway area and below the foundation as well. And what's happening is that's kind of collecting all the drainage. The groundwater is collecting in the stone, and it's coming through underneath the existing retaining wall. And that's why I have a second row of erosion control, because there is a bleed out there, and it's basically the low point. That's where all the groundwater is going. It was naturally going there before, which is why the wetland is there. But when they altered the site, 100 feet, 50 feet above the wetlands, by putting in the detention basin, the foundation, the stone, and everything, the groundwater was flowing a little bit freer, and was going in through the wall and coming out. So once the site is stabilized, the groundwater should pretty much go back to its natural condition.
Martha, you can see those boulders. Bob's got some images there. I'm not sure who took them, whether they were Brad's on the Google file.
Okay.
But they were just, it was a whole field of pretty good sized rock lying around.
Okay.
Yeah, the contractor did not bring in any fill or any stones to build this wall. The only material that's really been brought in so far is the stone, the 2-inch stone that went below the foundation, below the footing of the foundation and all that. That's really the only material that's been brought in or brought out. What you see here is it's all from the site.
Thank you. Okay, and can I ask, where are you sourcing the conservation seed mix for the replication area?
Oh, where we're getting it? It's the wetlands. It should be in there somewhere. It's the wetlands mix from New England Wetland Plant Mix, Amherst, Massachusetts. Okay. It's up Perfect. On the top detail. Wetland seed mix provided by. I've used them a lot. They have good seed. It's on the top part of the replication detail.
I see it now. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm all set now. Thank you. Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Sure.
Okay, Jason.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Ken.
So I can't really see the plan too well, but how big is this replication area? What's the size of it?
It's 230 square feet. It's about 23 by 10.
And what was disturbed? So how big is it in relation to what was disturbed originally?
The disturbed area is 175 square feet. So it's roughly 50% larger.
We usually look for something a little bit more when you're doing a replication.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you well.
We usually look for like 1.5 to 1.
Yeah, it's 1.5. It's 1.5. It's 1.5 times the 75, 250. Yeah, I mean, it's, in all honesty, when we scour that out the way we are, the replication it will actually be larger because of the way the grading is going to come down.
All right.
You all set, Ken?
Yep.
Brad?
Am I there? Okay, my computer's slowing down. So a few quick things just to kind of reemphasize some of what we've heard tonight too. So initially this got filed with a BVW line in the proposed project. It was an after the fact filing, and it was filed as work within the buffer zone. When I went out to take a look at the project, it looked to me like there was some possibly filled in wetlands. So with the commission's approval, we hired a peer review consultant, and when the three of us went out there, took a look, we all agreed that yes, there was some filled in wetlands, which is shown on the plan here. Those boulders that are there in that area, I don't believe that was something that's been there for a while. I think that was part of this house construction. When I look at the historical aerials, going back to even just a few years to 2015, you can see a tree line and a pile of stones that are, much further to the, well, I don't see a north arrow, but there it is. Okay, so much further to the west of the property. So somewhere, beyond or in the vicinity of that existing foundation, or even further west than that. So the stones were there, yes, but they weren't in the wetland right there, I believe. So that wall that's there was, recently done. It looks like it is proposing 1.5 to 1 replication for that. It's certainly not a limited project. It's at the commission's discretion if they want to allow the wall to stay there and do the replication. I can say the property owner has been cooperative with us at this point in terms of stopping the site work and filing the notice of intent and proceeding forward. So that part we've been, grateful for. I did have some concerns with the wall. There was quite a bit of voids there. It's ultimately going to need a building permit from the building inspector as well. So hopefully any structural issue gets, addressed through that avenue. So, I can follow up with the building inspector, but the commission could certainly put that in the condition as well. There is some additional material beyond boulders that's there. If anybody's looked at, sounds like some of you have looked at the images in the drive. There is some solid waste there that shouldn't be there, specifically what looks like some concrete blocks from retaining walls, presumably from another site. That was kind of dumped into that pile as well. That needs to be pulled out of there if it hasn't been already. Other than that, I don't really have any other questions. It's really, like I said, it's really up to the commission to allow the fill at their discretion at this point. And they have provided 1.5 to 1 replication for that.
Okay.
If I could add to that, there was some Versalock block concrete blocks from a wall. Apparently, the owner brought in. The contractor didn't bring it in, but we've agreed that all of those concrete blocks are to be removed. We singled them out on the site, and they're going to be excavated out. They're going to be taken out. And again, that could be a condition on the order.
Okay, Bob. All right, let's go to the public for any questions or comments on this hearing. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone. So is the commission comfortable tonight to close the hearing? Can I get a nod of the heads? Martha? Yep. Jason?
I am.
Yep. And Kent? Yep. Okay. So we've got an agreement to close the hearing, Bob, and it's officially closed.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your help. All I see right now is a picture, but I assume you could see each other. But thank you very much for your help.
Bob, do you know how to stop sharing?
Well, there's a button here that says stop sharing. If I hit that,
Yeah.
Okay, I see. You're back again. Now, while I was sharing the screen, could you see me, or was I behind?
Yes.
Oh, you could.
See it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't make any funny faces. All I could see was the picture. Okay, well, this has been a learning experience for me. Yeah, very good. Okay, well, thank you all for your help.
All right. Good night, Bob.
Okay, take care.
All right. That takes care of our hearings. And let's go on to our new and old business. And the first order is going to be orders of conditions. And I think we closed 2 tonight. With the Greenbrier Drive one and the 116 Boylston Circle. There's one thing I noticed though, Brad, on 116 Boylston Circle, did they come through with a file number? DEP? It doesn't look it.
Let me check really quick on that.
Okay.
I know they didn't have one at the last meeting. It was in my comments to the applicant in an email, I think, last week.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's a good point. So we probably can't issue one yet. But I'm going to go to the state's database right now and see if it's there. Okay.
All right. Why don't we, Ken, you want to make a motion on the other one while we're at it?
Mr. Chair, I think we closed 3 tonight, didn't we?
Well, one was a withdrawn one, was it, Martha, or did we close another one?
No, we closed the 0 Greenbrier Drive. And
yes, 0 Greenbrier Drive.
116 Boylston.
116 Boylston, and 75, and I'm
75
sorry,
high.
yeah, the one we just finished, 75 high. You're correct, Martha.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we issue an order of conditions for 0 Greenbrier Drive, 257 Gulf Street for the construction of a stormwater management system, paved roadway, and grading.
All right, do we have a second?
I can second.
Okay, any discussion on this one? Does anyone have any comments to add to it? I think we sort of got all our comments out during the hearing, so not hearing any comments, let's all in favor. We'll do a roll call. Martha,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
and John, aye. And we could do 75 high while Brad's looking.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we issue order of conditions 75 High Street for the construction of a new single-family home, drainage, driveways, landscaping.
All right, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay.
Unless Jason really wants to.
I'll let you go. Quite all right. I'll third.
All right, any discussion on this one? No?
I do think we want to condition it with so that the concrete blocks be removed from the site.
Okay. That's a good point, yep. Anything else? That should do it, right? All right, so all in favor? Martha,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And let's see what Brad's found out on 116 Boylston.
Right. So, as I suspected, it hasn't been issued, and more concerning to me is it's not even on their website. So a lot of times when they have an application, but they haven't issued a file number for some reason, it still shows up.
Yeah,
My comment to the applicant was that's unusual because, for it to be this long without it even sitting on their website. He did say that they cashed their check and he'd follow up with it. But unfortunately, I forgot to think of that and mention that to the commission.
yeah,
And I wasn't looking at the agenda, otherwise I would have seen that there's no file number on there and kind of reminded everybody. I let that slip, so we certainly
I missed it too.
can't have the commission issue anything tonight because
No.
you don't have the number.
Right, so does our clock start from the time we close the hearing? I mean, is that?
I wouldn't be too concerned about that part. I mean, administratively, you can't do anything without the DEP file number. So,
Right.
I mean,
So,
the only recourse is they appeal to DEP, and DEP is going to tell them, well, we don't have your application, or your application's incomplete with us for whatever reason. So there's no concern there.
all right.
I would just wait till they have the number, and then we can, I would suggest you continue the discussion on next month's agenda to issue the order at that time.
Okay, so we'll put it, it'll show up as an agenda item then, Brad? That it's
Yes.
on, it'll show
Right.
up
My
as-
bigger concern is, for whatever reason, and I have noticed this a lot lately, DEP has been very active with comments on theirs. It hasn't necessarily impacted anything that the commission's done in terms of their
Yeah.
decisions, but you never know if they might have seen something they want addressed or something that we didn't think of. You want to be able to review their comment letter and entertain anything that you need to put in your decision there.
Correct, yep. No, that's good. Can you call Paul tomorrow and just tell him that he has to do some follow-up here?
Yeah, I'll send him an email, and then we can have a discussion if need be together.
Okay. So that should do it because we voted on the withdrawal on South Street. And There's a discussion on Deerfield, 14A Deerfield Road, but there has been no new news on that, correct, Brad?
Correct.
And certificate of compliance, 526 Hartford Turnpike.
Right. That's for the very old Stony Hill subdivision now. It's been around since before I've been working for the town. So that was on this parcel. Well, this parcel was part of that, the parent parcel. So you may recall the commission issued a amended order for that address last month. So they're looking to clean up the old order from, I think it's the early 90s or 80s, in terms of getting that off the title. So I see no reason not to release that at this point.
Okay. Should we swing by the office this week to sign it?
This week would be great because I'm actually there this week.
Yep. Okay.
What would be a good time?
I typically get there about 7:30 in the morning. If you just want to call ahead, just let me know when you want to come, and I'll try to be there. We'll make arrangements.
Perfect. All right.
Brad, will you be around at 8:30 tomorrow morning? By chance?
Yes, I don't have any meetings scheduled. Yep.
All right, awesome.
Okay, that's the end of the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
Second.
All right, Jason. Okay, we'll do a roll call. All in favor? Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
All right.
Ken?
Aye.
And John? Aye. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.